first time I think all of us have gathered. And thank you for allowing us to use the Zoom virtual space, because then it allows us to do a little bit of the in-person, or makes it feel like a little bit of in-person. So you all know me. I'm Anna Mejia. I'm the Climate Projects Coordinator at Vital Communities. I've been there for a year now, and I am helping with this energy savings project. It's a 3-year grant that Vital Communities got specifically to do weatherization, one through cover home repair. So we're reimbursing them for some of the weatherization materials to weatherize mobile homes. And then secondly, which is the aspect that we'll be talking about, is the outreach side of things, working with town energy committees. So that's very exciting. And most recently, our team just expanded, and we are welcoming Julia Guy as our new AmeriCorps Vista member. So I'll let Julia talk a little bit about what she'll be doing.
Hi everyone, it's so nice to meet you. And this is my inaugural meeting for this project, which is very exciting. So I'm Julia. I am the AmeriCorps Vista member serving at Vital Communities. It's just the start of my 3rd week at Vital Communities, so still spreading my wings and all that good stuff. But I'll be supporting Anna and town energy committees on outreach and sort of getting our foot in the door for mobile home residents.
And so you could all introduce yourselves. I'll pick on Norm first because he was the first one on the call, and Norm, if you want to pick on somebody else. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So my name is Norman Levy. I'm a member of the Norwich Energy Committee, and we have worked with cover home repair in the past, primarily by providing them with LED bulbs that we purchased in bulk and just gave them to them so that when they did weatherization, they would, with permission, they would replace all the bulbs with LEDs. So it was an additional benefit. So we're familiar with their efforts, and we're familiar with the work with mobile homes. And I personally have donated them for their ramp program as well. That's it.
Thanks, Norm. And a quick welcome to Nicole from the Bethel Energy Committee. So she is able to join us. I was just telling the group that your energy committee had said that they were signed on to do an outreach campaign in the fall. We weren't sure if you were going to be attending today. So glad that you are. And we're just doing introductions right now. You missed Norm's, or you catch the end of Norm's introduction. And Julia Guy is our new AmeriCorps Vista member who's helping build capacity for this project and will be directly supporting town energy committees. And you know me at Vital Communities. So we still have introductions from the remaining 3 of you. So I'm gonna pass it on to Tom. Maybe then Ryan can follow on, and then lastly Nicole.
Sure. So I'm Tom Ward. I'm a member of the Thetford Energy Committee. I've been on the committee for about 1.5 years. Just moved to the Upper Valley permanently just a couple of years ago. And Thetford has done weatherization programs before, prior to me being on the committee. So I don't know all the details of that, but I know we've done let's call it homes as opposed to mobile homes, permanent structures. This is one of the sort of areas of focus that we have sort of identified, weatherization in general, and people of moderate income specifically, and mobile homes fits neatly into our goals. So there are other people on our committee that may get involved with these meetings or otherwise, but I guess I'm the point person, and other people have had more direct hands-on experience doing weatherization. But yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on here.
Hey folks, I'm Ryan Hawk, Chair of the Sharon Energy Committee. We've participated with Vital Communities before in weatherization, actually with Bethel alongside when we did the Weatherize Upper Valley, and we felt that was a pretty good success. Really, working with Vital Communities really helps at least kind of catalyze what we're doing, because they put the organization in, you know, and can think about these kinds of things during the day when, you know, yeah. Anyhow, and so yeah, this is certainly just kind of like Tom was mentioning. This has kind of been one of we feel like lower income folks are kind of often left out of a lot of the things that we get involved in as an energy committee, and this has really been one of our areas that we've attempted to focus on. And what really brought it to the light for me was, I think it was the last energy committee roundtable that we had at the Montshire. There was some really, I want to say, interesting and maybe thought-provoking presentations about, you know, that very fact, just that disparate outreach that, you know, we're typically doing that usually involves capital investment by individuals, and, you know, that really leaves a lot of people out because they don't have the money to do it. So we're excited to be involved in this. I'd love if there are other members of my energy committee that are going to be helping out, but we'll see what happens. So it might just get me.
Nicole, do you want to give your introduction? You're muted, by the way.
I'm working on finding the button. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. My name's Nicole Sear. I'm from Bethel, and the Bethel Energy Committee is interested in this. I wasn't so sure if we'd have, you know, resources, human power to take on anything this fall, but you know, we managed to stick together through the summer, and the team is, you know, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and we want to put it somewhere. So this campaign coming up right now is great timing. There's a few mobile home parks that we can think of in Bethel, and we are a low-income town as well. I think 40% of us are below the median Vermont average income. So this sounds like a good fit for the committee. And I'm really happy to see the Sharon Energy Committee here, because I wasn't sure if you existed. And I think we should definitely connect in some way just to like keep on with what we're doing. The Energy Committee, just yesterday, we recruited 2 people from the South Royalton Law School. And they are a tremendous asset, and they can go both ways. Because Sharon's, you know, right on the other side of South Royalton. So just one quick plug for that. We should connect.
Yeah, Jose knows how to get a hold of me.
Jose is actually not on the Energy Committee
Oh,
anymore.
no, well, that explains it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, got it.
And welcome, Mike. Mike just joined us. We were just doing introductions, so if you want to give a introduction to yourself.
Sure. Mike Keese. I work with Anna at Vital Communities, and I live in the same town with Tom. So we're both on the Energy Committee, and somehow I got talked into being chair a couple of years ago. So now I rely on people like Tom to actually help get things done. And one of the things we've been talking about in Thetford, and I know around this region for a long time, is who's being helped by weatherization, and the fact that, you know, we need all of our structures, you know, the individually and shared, to be much more efficient, and we need to use them in more efficient ways if we're going to have a sustainable community here. So so really excited to be kind of collectively thinking about how can we reach out and connect with people and build on the relationships we have to help everybody benefit. That's me.
Thank you, Mike. And when there isn't a pandemic, usually Mike and I share an office together, so we would be side by side. Okay, so I then wanted to just give a brief introduction to what the purpose of these calls were, and then dive into, you know, the more meat of today's conversation. But I had intended these weekly informal check-ins to serve as a place for us to discuss anything related to the energy, I'm calling it the energy savings outreach campaign. And Julie and I will be available to answer any questions that you have, provide support and feedback to the town energy committees. Today is going to be a little bit more formal than we would like, because there's a lot of, this is our first call, and there's, you know, a lot of things that we need to get out of the way, and we need to share some of the resources that we've been working on, which includes the planning list that I had emailed out. So we'll go over that a little bit later. But really hoping that this will serve as a place for you to have some of those connections, like, you know, Nicole and Ryan just talking about Bethel and Sharon working together. So that's what this space is for. And we also expect that while we will be bringing, you know, some material and content for these meetings, we also hope that you will be bringing your questions, and aside from questions, discussing some challenges that you're facing throughout either the planning phase or the actual outreach phase, the follow-up phase, sharing progress updates, and discussing success stories. So that's what we hope we'll eventually get to. And feel free to stay. So Julie and I have blocked up this full hour. This is time that we're always going to be available. We're going to keep this Zoom line open. And for those who can attend the full hour, great. For those who can only attend for, you know, 15 minutes, then that's great too. We also encourage you to use the chat feature. How many people are not familiar with Zoom? Okay, looks, we're all pretty versed with Zoom.
I think by now we all got it, yeah.
As we should be. So feel free to use the chat feature, like if you have any questions and you kind of don't want to interrupt or anything, but feel free to interrupt. As I said, these meetings are informal. But the chat box would be a really good way to let me and Julia know, hey, I can only jump in for, like, I got to jump out in 5 minutes. So if you got a quick question, we can address that. So that's the purpose of these calls overall, and we're welcome to modifying the timing of these calls, the frequency of them. So we're open to your feedback, and we'll reassess. So for today's call, we thought it'd be a good opportunity for you all to get to know each other, for you to meet Julia, our new AmeriCorps Vista, and to discuss next steps. And then we'll lead into any questions that you may have. So the first thing that we should review is I emailed you all a energy savings campaign planning task list. So you could either open that up in your computer, or I could do a screen share. Does anybody have any preference for me doing a screen share? You can raise your hand.
I think the screen share works best. That way we're all seeing the same thing.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right, I will do that. All right, can you all confirm for me that you're looking at my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So this is the planning task list that I had emailed out, and this is going to serve as our kind of foundation for getting us to where we need to be, which is to launch an actual outreach campaign, right? But there's lots of things that we need to do before we're ready for that. And I should preface that by saying that, again, we're not expecting all towns to be on the same schedule for when they will launch their campaign. When we did this last year with Springfield and Hartford, they actually didn't launch at the same time. Hartford launched, very good timing, they launched in April. And Springfield launched late January. So we're open to just keeping in mind what schedules works best for the energy committees themselves. But overall, here's kind of what we're envisioning. I included the project goal and a project overview, which is nothing new to you all, but I thought it'd be good to include that in this document. So for the planning phase, which we had envisioned between, summer when most of you I had presented at your town energy committee meeting, and then till early fall when we're projecting, hopefully we'd have a plan for outreach. So I split this planning task list into two categories. One are things that you can do right now, and two are the second category is things that we're going to do later. So the things that we need to do now, there are three main things, and they're kind of in no real particular order. So first is the first bullet, again, not in a particular order. First bullet is to obtain a list of mobile home residents and mobile home park owners. So a lot of you have already done some of that research, and it's okay if you haven't. This is something that we identified as a really good best practice when we ran the outreach campaign with Hartford. Hartford did have, their own town energy coordinator, so this idea kind of came from him. He pulled the list of mobile home residents with their mailing addresses, and he was able to get this information by asking the town assessor for this list. And we were able to use that list to send mailings to all the mobile home residents based on that information. And having their mailing addresses was really important too, because some of them have PO boxes that are not associated with their physical address. So it's really, really good to have that level of information if it's available. If it's not, we'll figure something else out, but that is a good first step to do if you haven't done so already. And Vital Communities has already have a list of all the mobile home park owners and their contact information. So we will provide you at the end of this meeting, if your town has any mobile home parks, we'll provide you a list of the parks themselves, what their physical address is, and the contact information for the mobile home park owners. If you see anybody on that list who you already have connections with, it might be a good idea to reach out to them and say, here's what we've got in the works, and make an initial introduction. But only really at this point, since we're not ready to launch, it's not really necessary if you don't have any connections with these people. And then once you have those two sources of information, residents and mobile home park owners, start looking through that list and identifying anyone that the Town Energy Committee might have contacts with, because those will be good people to get informed about this project ahead of time, and they might be willing to serve a role in that. We might be able to, pick their brain about, what do you think is the best way to get this information out? Is there a meeting? Is there association within this mobile home park? Is there a place that you usually, share information through? So that is a good thing to do. And then secondly is identifying outreach opportunities. So we have also emailed out a outreach ideas database worksheet. And so it's really just like a table, which I'm gonna switch screens right now. So give me a second so that I can pull up the other one. All right, can you all see the outreach ideas database? Okay, so what this is just really like a list of like places that you might start. And so the goal is that you could start populating this list of, who are our community partners. So here you'll see kind of the places in which we kind of categorize these. And then you could start, so community partners, it could be, a local church, what's their contact information? And how do you, before, reaching out to them, you might already start strategizing, what are we asking of them? Sometimes it's going to be a little bit open-ended. You come to them and you say, here's what we have in the works, and it'll be more of a dialogue. Here's what we can offer. But it'd be a good idea before contacting them, getting an idea of what would you like their involvement to be? Where do residents get their news? And this is where it's really good to have, if you look through the list of mobile home residents or mobile home park, if you have contacts with the mobile home park owners, they would be the best people to help you build out this this list. But you might be aware of just generally in your town, where do people get their news? Is it Facebook? Is it a local newspaper? Is it the listserv? This one, I am sure it's going to be maybe a little bit sparse or maybe just full of tons of virtual events, which is okay. Even if it's not an in-person event, a lot of things like virtual meetings lend themselves really well for you to say, hey, can I have 2 minutes of your agenda so I can make a quick pitch about this? So don't discount those virtual meetings. And in fact, I think a lot of virtual meetings are kind of taking place during this time because people want to connect with their community. High traffic locations. So here we're thinking, is there at the post office, is there a bulletin board? These will be actual print materials that we can put out. So what are good locations in which we can put out those resources? Good places to host outreach events. This is a little bit of wishful thinking. If we could do a bit more of like in-person outreach events, at least that's what we had planned that, but we're trying to be a bit more creative. So is there virtual outreach events that we can host? Can we host, in partnership with the library, some like office hours in which we similar to what Vital Communities is doing here, we block off a full hour and we say, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop by. So that's just an idea. Home energy champions. This we're thinking about neighbors or any contacts that you know who have already benefited from programs through Cover or Listen or through the community action agencies, Efficiency Vermont. If you know of anyone personally who has benefited from these programs, you can.
Can I interrupt for a second? Relating to that, does since you're working with Cover, and Cover's been doing mobile home weatherizations for years, do they have a list that we could organize by community so we will know within each one of these mobile home parks people that have had work and could be an example or be willing to talk to their neighbors at any level? It's kind of getting us one step further than having to do it on our own.
Yeah, great thinking, Norm. And Julie and I just had a meeting with Cover with the new homeownership coordinator.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what her title is, but she just started at Cover, and so she'd be the one that would have access to that list. And we did pose that exact question of, are there residents who you can connect us with? So I will be following up with her. They did indicate that they'd be willing to provide that information. So I'll just be following up with her to see, what is the timeline for that. And I will be in communication with you all about what the status of that is. But that's definitely something that we're looking into.
So one added thing, I'm sorry, I talk a lot, but this is an experience that I've had with Cover, and in basically getting me to donate money. They took me out to a very charming woman living in a mobile home that had a very compelling story. She's, I don't know if she's still active and would be willing to collaborate, but a filmed interview with somebody who is articulate, has a very interesting story, has achieved a tremendous amount, and is smart enough that she has outreach to her neighbors to promote Cover to them, might be a useful resource to have online, or a YouTube or something as a visual promotion.
That is an excellent idea. Thank you, Norm. I will definitely. And you said that was someone through Cover that you
were. It was through Cover, and it was the director that took me out there. It was on the New Hampshire side, and she was also. They had built a ramp for her as well as weatherizing her home, and I found her charming. I actually sent her a dozen roses afterwards, just as as a thank you for telling me her story and achieving it. So
great idea, Norm. And I love
it. Bill would be able to tell you who she is because they used her a lot because she was charming. So the Cover used her for little reports.
Yeah, thank you, Norm. And I love that you're also modeling kind of what we're hoping to get out of these weekly calls is someone has a really great idea and all of you get to hear it. And I also just want to, recognizing that you all kind of have had experience with vital communities, I'm sure you know that we really defer to the local knowledge of you all. You know your towns best, and you know, we're not the experts here. We kind of see you as the experts. We're just the people who kind of have access to some resources and tools that we can, and we have time, you know, really to think through some of these and follow up on some of these leads. So thank you for modeling that, Norm. Does anybody, and this might be a good time to open it up to other people on the call who might have some ideas to share? Or comments, questions? Okay. I'll keep turning through, and I feel like that probably was it for this document. So home energy champions, and I love the idea of the filmed interviews. So we'll follow up on that with cover and maybe different other service providers. And then any other outreach ideas that you may have.
Hey, I'll jump in for a minute, and Julia too. Thanks for this awesome organization. This is a great set of ideas and a plan and a way to approach things. I think it's really helpful. And then to have a place to capture the information is really great. And I like having this forum to kind of share best practices along the way. I'm just thinking out loud from my experience as part of our energy committee, that I think, you know, we probably need someone to be kind of a champion within our committee. And maybe that'll be you, Tom. That'd be fantastic if you are. And then, but then also we'll need to break it into small chunks and ask people for discrete tasks. Because, you know, usually when we've tried to look at something big as a committee, we just kind of get overwhelmed by the scope of it. And so, you know, it goes better for us when there's somebody in the background who's got the really big scope. And I think Julia and Anna together, if you're looking at that out collectively across this town, what's the big scope of things, that's really helpful. And then if we can, Tom and I within our energy committee look at it as all right, here's our part of what we're trying to do kind of for our town with our connections and learn from others, that's good. And then as I say, keep it down to really small tasks that we ask energy committee members either to volunteer to do or to find somebody else who can help them do that. That might help us move forward. And the last bit I'll add to that is some kind of accountability outside ourselves. Like if we know, all right, you know, we've got a weekly check-in call and here are things, we want to accomplish these 3 things in this month, right? So that's kind of like, you know, by week 1, got to get this done, and 2, want to get this done, and 3, we've got to get this done, and we leave ourselves that last week as the slack because things happen. You know, that might help our committee to keep moving incrementally. You know, because it feels easy to get overwhelmed in these times to me. So anyway, that's the thought.
Yeah, and I realized that I was screen sharing and I was in a miniature view. So if you were trying to get a word in and I missed it, I'm so sorry. And that's actually really great leading back to the planning task list, because that was the next thing. I'm going to do the screen share again. So this one number here was create volunteer project team. So I think this is what Mike was talking about, like a subcommittee. And the purpose of this project team would be to schedule routine calls outside of, let's say the Thetford Energy Committee usually meets, you know, on Thursday, the third Thursdays. Then maybe they're going to need additional meetings besides that to talk about this specific project, because so they'd be responsible for scheduling those additional meetings, and we can help with any virtual organization tools that you may need. If you need access to a Zoom line, if you need just like some guidance on how to run it, if you need us to help coordinate a doodle pool or all of that, we can help with that. And then as Mike suggested, assigning big overwhelming task, but people know, okay, I'm responsible for this bit, so and so's responsible for this other bit. And we do already have a template volunteer roles that we can share out. So those are the three things that we had thought are really good stuff that we can get started on right now and make progress on by our next weekly check-in. And the goal is you will, move forward as much as you can. So some of you may come to the next meeting with already the list of mobile home residents. You've already filled out the outreach opportunities. You may already have identified a volunteer project team. But we also understand that sometimes there's setbacks. Maybe, there's, you're still waiting on a response from the town assessor for this list. So again, these check-in calls will help us keep each other accountable. We understand and we know what the end goal is, which is by the end of this short little sprint, we'll have identified who are the people who are point people for Thetford, for Sharon, for Bethel, and all the other town energy committees. And we'll have already an outreach ideas database, and we'd be able to, kind of cross-check those at the next network call. Like maybe your town energy identified this as a really good outreach idea, and maybe it's worth another town energy committee to hear that, and that could spur some additional thought.
Anna, are you going to put a spreadsheet together with this information divided by town and a location where it will be, so we'll have a place where we can find information and then place information?
Yes, we definitely can do that. Usually the tools that we use is a shared Google Drive. If you're familiar with the Weatherize campaigns, that's what we did. And I'm open to hearing if there's, any feedback from that. Did people like how the Google Drive worked? Does that seem like a good resource to use this time around?
Yeah, it's nice to have one box where we know the project is going to be, and where the spreadsheet of contact information and a spreadsheet of homeowner information, and yeah.
Perfect. So Julie and I will make sure that we have that out to you all, or at least the access place where they will all live. And
Anna, along those lines, the outreach ideas database that you have, you sent that to us as a Word doc, I believe.
Yeah.
Will that be also put out in the Google Drive by town? That way I can go over and look at, well, what did Norwich come up with? We didn't think of that. We don't have to wait for this meeting if we have a time to do our own brainstorming and looking at other people's ideas.
Awesome. Yeah. I hadn't planned on doing that, but it's definitely, I think, a lot more efficient than waiting for the next meeting. So yes, I can do that.
Good.
Do we all want to agree that, once we put that on the Google Drive, that you will fill that out on the Google Drive? Alternatively, if there's any aversions to doing that, you can send that to me and I can pull that information to the Google Drive.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I would probably find it more useful in like a spreadsheet type format as opposed to the Word doc, because then and then one column is like town, and we could then just essentially aggregate them all and see what all our ideas are and where there's overlap. And but that's not necessary. That's just some.
No, I like that idea, so we'll run with that. Any other thoughts on this before we move on to the to-do later?
I guess the one other thing is the volunteer role template. I'm really interested in that, because that would really help me get others involved in my town by giving them, little chunks that they don't feel like, oh, I can't get involved in that. That's too much work.
Yeah.
Just so that would certainly be really helpful if you guys have that.
Yes, we'll do that. Perfect. All right, so now on the to-do later, And again, this was kind of just thinking about all the things that need to happen and not really in a particular order, but maybe. So first is getting trained on the full range of energy programs that are available. So the purpose is that if you're being expected to, help community members identify what programs are out there and how you apply for them, you're going to need some training, right? And we did this for Springfield and Hartford. And we will need to update that training. It was last year was an 1.5 hour long presentation, and I know in saying that it may seem like, wow, that could be like really overwhelming. What I want you to take away from that is the focus is just to give you like, what is the overview, like what programs are available. You don't have to memorize anything of like, here are the intricacies of how you submit the application. The training will cover how specifically the outreach materials that we've developed will contain that information, so that okay, there's this program and I pull out this sheet and this is going to talk about specifically the application process. So just to eliminate any fears about how overwhelming that may feel.
And sorry, I'm going to talk a lot. I apologize.
That's okay.
One of my frustrations with the resources made available by different state organizations is that they come and go, and they outdate, and you never, so you have to chase after them. You have to go to their websites, or maybe they send you something and it's active until August 31st, and then it's not, and then the price is this and the subsidy is this, and then it's not. It would be nice if Vital Communities could take on that responsibility of keeping track of all these resources beyond this program, and when things change or when things are available, have a source where the up-to-date information is available. I mean, it's one of those busy work things of kind of following the endless programs that are available in the state, but otherwise we either give wrong information or outdated information, or we don't know about resources that people would be interested in.
Yeah.
Tough one.
No, actually, it's something that we were prepared for, and something that we did last year. So we're not starting from scratch. I'm gonna do another screen share, so I'm gonna stop this here to just give you a little taste of what we did last year. Let's see, screen share. Okay, so what we did is compile a list of, okay, here are the different programs that are out there, just enough information so that you know about it and you know who to call. And then a little criteria, and really I want to give credit to Thetford for this, because I was modeling this on some of the outreach materials that Thetford's like Heat Squad or something had done. And as you'll notice here, it says this guide was produced in December 2019. The goal of that is we're going to know, is this current, is this not current? And we're going to update this so that every time, and unfortunately, these income guidelines, they don't all change at the same time. There's some that come out in April and some that come out in the summer. So we will be working on our end to keep these updated, but always updating that date so that we can say, hey, this is the most current version. And then in addition to this kind of overview of the programs that are out there, we're also developing one-page, what we're calling cheat sheets for these programs. So if you're interested in free weatherization, here's the more in-depth information that you need about how to apply. And so it goes into the more specific details, but for each of these different programs. And again, you'll see here, updated November of 2019, so that we can know, all right.
But these are printed documents. Is there an underlying spreadsheet that can be updated so that between printings, we could actually see this information in a sort of a more real-time way? Again, it's more work, but otherwise, you know, if it said as of that date, then what's happening now? Right. We would have to
Yeah.
wait for another printed document to find out what the current things are.
Yeah, and so what I can say to that end is, while they do change on different timelines, what I'm seeing is they usually don't change more than twice a year. So that's at least for, you have most of the guidelines that go off the federal poverty level, those get updated usually in the summer. Those that go off area median income, those are out by April. That's my knowledge now. And I attend monthly check-in calls with different service providers in which they can tell me like, hey, this program is changing. And so that for me triggers, okay, I need to update this outreach material. I can't really envision a way to get this all in one spreadsheet, but will definitely try my best to try to keep that live. It may end up looking super complicated and ugly, but the goal is to just get that information accessible. So
the dynamic idea would be kind of a shared databases, so that one database of a state organization's resources change, it's an automatic upload into your master database, and therefore it's always up to date and it happens automatically. That's a big, that takes money, time, and a willingness of many organizations that are usually strapped for time and money to cooperate, but that's the idea.
And couldn't you, I know a spreadsheet might look a little sloppy, but the way you've got it laid out in these brochures is pretty neat and tidy. And I could see these being pages potentially, if you're allowed to, on a Vital Communities website. And when you get an update, not only track it for the next time you print, but just update it on the form online. And that way any community member, not just us, would have access to it. And yeah, it might be 30 days out of date because you're only meeting with these groups, talking to these suppliers maybe once a month, but that's potentially a lot better than waiting 6 months sometimes.
Mike, did you have something to add?
Well, I was going to throw in the additional factor just for remind everyone that, Vital Community serves 2 states and multiple utilities. And so it's not just trying to keep Vermont up to date for Green Mountain Power and, efficiency Vermont incentives. It's also Liberty Utilities and the, New Hampshire's programs. And so I guess it's, let's make sure that the pool of information we have is what is right for the people we're trying to serve, I guess is what I encourage, is the focus. Because having an up-to-date, website or something that isn't serving the mission necessarily, just because it's accurate doesn't mean it's useful. And so I think I'd encourage us to be really focused on the utility, as from the relationships and the connections we're making, and as we're identifying, or as we're learning from people about the hurdles they see, that we're then identifying the ways to get over or around those hurdles. And that's the information that we make sure, if that information changes frequently, we create a way to know what the right way around the hurdle is today or this week or this month. If it's something that changes once a year, okay, we know, that's this data that we have today is good for another year of helping people get through that hurdle. But I think trying to make sure our focus is on the perceptions and the needs of the people that we're trying to help, and that mission, that'll help us a lot. And we'll just, that could be the basis for designing our tools.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And that's a good point of just pulling us back to like, why are we doing an outreach that is focused on doing the more person-to-person connection? And it's because we found that even though, that information can be accessible on a website, even though Vital Communities could send out thousands of mailings with this information, it's not enough. Like, we need volunteers that are able to then explain it to people and encourage, essentially hold their hand through the process, because a lot of this information can easily become overwhelming and then people don't know where to start. So that's part of what the goal is making, we're going to make sure that we have the information accurate, that it's accessible to people, but it's also about making sure that it's communicated well. people. And looking at the time, we've got less than 15 minutes left. So I'm gonna zoom back to the planning list and then gonna open it up for just like broad discussion and questions, because I'm sure there is more. So we talked about training, and we'll cover outreach materials then, and we'll create an outreach plan, and we'll be working with all of you town energy committees in developing that outreach plan. We had a template, and we're looking at revising that, because to be honest, our plan was really focused on door knockings and more in-person stuff. So we're changing things as we go, and we're eager to hear your ideas. And there is a template, so we'll share that. We'll share that once we've updated it, and that work plan is also going to help us identify what is the timeline that we're intending this outreach plan. Like how long of an outreach are we intending to do? Is this going to be like a 2-week exerted effort? Is it going to be longer? And really keeping in mind, like, what are the resources that you have? How many volunteers do you have? Connecting with partners who can help with outreach. That's when you'll identify, okay, Norm is going to talk to so-and-so at this church. Tom is going to talk to so-and-so at the food pantry. And Vital Communities will be setting up systems for tracking the outreach efforts. So that will live also in the Google Drive that we'll create. So similar to with Weatherrise, we had like a contacts list of here's who I talked to, here's the program that they're interested in, and any notes, and it can be customized based on your feedback. So that is kind of our tasks moving forward. I'm gonna shut up now and let you all share your questions, comments, concerns.
Well, I always have a question, but I'm going to defer to anybody else before I ask it.
Question. Funding. The Bethel Energy Committee has no money. So what is the situation with funding?
We have money. We have about $600 per town to devote to outreach efforts. And I did come up with a whole list of like, here's how much we may spend on postage, here's how much we may spend on advertisements, but that's really the gist of it, about $600 per town. And we can talk a little bit once we've done more of this like planning tasks of creating the volunteer subcommittee, identifying the residents, the outreach opportunities. That's when I feel like we'll be ready to really sit down and talk about, here's our outreach plan, here's our budget, and really work through those details.
That sounds great. I mean, this plan looks very easy to read, easy to use. It's just kind of starting to do it. But I definitely feel like it's really well planned, and I appreciate all the effort you put into it.
Thanks, Nicole.
So my question was relating to past weatherization activities. We would sort of line up people, get them interested, and then at some point we would hand them off to the weatherization companies. In this case, it's always Cover. And then, so I guess I'm asking, when do we hand off? And then when does Cover take over in terms of that explanation? And then we could be a resource if they're still confused after talking to Cover. I'm just trying to figure out how the loop is going to work, and whether you have that in mind or whether that's something we'll figure out later on in the process. And also how many weatherizations Cover can do. I mean, the worst thing would be like capstones where they have a three-year waiting list, and that becomes depressing if nothing else.
Yeah, so very good point. And I want to highlight two main things. One is that with Cover, although we're here to promote their services, we're not expecting that they're going to immediately increase the number of jobs that they're doing, because we're doing more outreach, which I know can lead to issues. But the reality is that we're also hoping to through these outreach efforts, if we can get more information specifically, let's say, about cover. And maybe we can get more people to go out there on the volunteer assisted weatherizations. Maybe that will spur their capacity to be able to do more weatherization projects. So while the goal is to raise more awareness of these programs, there isn't a guarantee that they're going to be able to, double the amount of weatherizations that they're going to be able to do. The agreement that we have with Vital Communities was to help them specifically in like the reimbursement of weatherization materials, but it's not money for, okay, you can hire more people to, do more projects. So there, we are kind of within those, limitations. But one of the, more big picture ways that we're looking at this is we're not just going to be handing them off really to one program. It's going to be more, holistic than that. Sometimes you may be referring people to three different programs. It's really going to be dependent on what they're telling you. And so there's going to be a lot of listening. What are their needs? So it may be, they need some type of weatherization. All right, the first step would be to have them sign up for the wait list. Unfortunately, it may be a long wait, but there's other things that they can be doing in the meantime as well. They could also, sign up for cover. They could also sign up for getting discounts on their electric bill. So really trying to look at it at what are the things that are going to benefit them in the long term and also in the short term. So it's going to be really dependent on the individual person. It's not going to be prescriptive of, all right, we're going to all hand them off to X person and it's all going to be at the same time. It's really going to depend on the residents themselves. And as far as how long, as far as following up with them, that's going to be dependent on you as a town energy committees. What capacity do you have? Are you able to run? Do you have volunteers that will be willing to run or will be willing to follow up with residents 1 month down the line? Is it only 3 weeks that your volunteers can commit to? That's really what it's going to come down to.
Wow, that's a big chunk. That's basically what social services organizations do, and that's pretty far beyond sort of volunteer activity. So it'll be interesting to see how the different towns can take on those projects. That's big.
Mike?
Yeah, as you were describing that in response to Norm's question, I was thinking about the scale of some things we've done with Vital Communities, that Thetford's done with Vital Communities and that Thetford's done independently. And I thought I'd try to describe those, and I don't know where we'll end up deciding to settle, right now. But has everyone, Nicole, Ryan, Norm, have you been part of a Vital Communities weatherization campaign?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
as per usual, Linda Gray did much of it, but we've been involved with them for years in their campaigns, and we have a lot of success just because Norwich is a fairly wealthy town, so people have the money to do it on their own. This next level of getting support from other organizations is a bigger challenge. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, our experience in Thetford with the weatherization campaigns was that the key thing that we had volunteers doing, and some of those volunteers were energy committee members, others were just people who were interested in supporting it, was that they checked in with whoever had signed up. So, we did the kind of promotion thing and we got people to sign up to have somebody visit, but then it was somebody had to call everybody and say, did you actually, schedule a visit? How'd the visit, and then after the visit, how did the visit go? It seemed really important to have, a calendar. So, if Norm, you're the person who's considering weatherization, and Mike, I'm the volunteer, then you and I had a calendar, and I made a commitment that I was going to call you to ask about these things, and that sort of kept you moving too.
Right.
And
the way we did it was we maintained a spreadsheet and we had a list, and then each one of the energy committee members was assigned X number of people to be for the next step. And then we would record what the effects of that next step was. And the first filter was, do you know these people, right? and that made it a lot easier to contact versus the cold calls, which was a different level of contact.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. You have to do that follow-up effort.
So as I was kind of in my mind, I was sort of modeling this, thinking that cover and maybe you know, the utility, Green Mountain Power, or you know, another agency, as you say, is sort of in effect like the contractor was, and maybe you know, our committee or other people that we help recruit are filling those volunteer roles, and you might have to get to know the person first, as you say, but after you get to know each other, it's like you're agreeing to be their partner in bugging, you know, the providers to get the service. And so that was kind of one kind of scope I was potentially imagining. And then another thing that we did in Thetford a couple different times was we recruited volunteers to either do some simple weatherizations. They went around and we did a sort of you know, it was over a course of a couple weekends of people actually doing, you know, installing LED bulbs and putting some foam weather stripping in, and you know, really basic like type things that people could do. And then another time where we had we had a particular home and you know, a person who lived in that home who didn't have the funds to do weatherization themselves, but was willing to have it done. And so we, with a little bit of fundraising, and we recruited some volunteers to work for a contractor, basically. So and then so it was sort of like our own cover job in a way, right? And that, so we've thought about, there were a number of things that we bumped up against in trying to repeat that, and one of those was insurance. Like that the town in the end said they weren't comfortable having their insurance cover volunteer work on a private house. Mm-hmm. And so the Energy Committee couldn't be the organizer anymore. But this, what we're talking about now, is a way for cover to be the lead contractor, or somebody like cover, you know, and then we're hoping that we can recruit some volunteers to be some of the workforce. So, you know, they'd have to use cover's training, but they would be cover's insurance would provide for that. So that's another kind of end of the spectrum for us to think about. Are there people in our town willing to do that? And we know that actually from our past experience, there is a pretty good number of people in our town who would sign up to do that kind of help. And so as I'm imagining, and we haven't tested this yet, that if we're talking to you know, someone who says, hey, you know, I'd like to mobilize or weatherize my mobile home. I don't have the money to do it, but I'd be willing to put in some sweat equity at somebody else's house if they can help me. You know, so it's the kind of trying to tap into, you know, I'll help make this thing happen. And I'll take I know we're getting near time. I would say we did this window inserts program, window dressers, I think people have heard about, where it's basically that you pay a little bit of money and then it's all volunteer labor. And one of the things that we ask of people is, if you're going to get these, provide some input. And if you can't help build, then cook some food or greet people, or, you know, what, I mean, everyone did something. And we had overwhelming response to that, you know, that people showed up, everyone wanted to do something in a sense to contribute to this shared project. So I'm sort of hoping, I know at least we can hold people's hands because we've done that with Weatherize, and I'm hoping that we can move more along that spectrum to actually recruiting people to participate in helping, you know, fix up each other's homes, with, you know, with kind of cover as our umbrella. Yeah, as our cover. So that's, thank you. That there's some, I'll boil all that down to a question for Anna and Julia. Does that vision fit in what you're thinking about, or am I getting way off the rails or out ahead, or, you know, what do you think about that?
I'll take this one, Julia. That definitely, you know, falls into our vision, and also thinking just about the way that Vital Communities approaches these projects is, we're not doing this for 3 years for the sake of let's, you know, help as many people as we can during this time. That is part of it, but the other, you know, long range part of it is helping our community make the connections and come up with creative solutions so that it can continue once the funding, you know, our 3-year project is over. So that what you're describing, Mike, is exactly the very long term goal of facilitating those connections and solutions. So we are at 101 now, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you for participating in our very first call, and there will be more to come. And there's a lot of information that I will follow up with you all, including a massive Google Drive folder with a bunch of links in it. If you have any questions that weren't addressed during today's call, feel free to email me and Julia, and we will get back to you. And I think that is all for now. Does anyone have any parting comments?
Just to say, this looks really well organized. You know, what Nicole said, I echo that.
Thank you. All right, you all have a good rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see each other hopefully at the next call, and we'll be in touch via email before then.
Okay.
Great.
Great to meet you, Ryan. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Bye.